There we go, folks. Welcome again to another edition of the Inworld Review, bringing you all the best of the metaversal stuff for the week. And the first thing I'd like to do actually today is just send my commiserations. We had a few guests planned, and there seems to be a plague running around the planet. Deb's Regent is under the weather in Portugal. Maria Korolov is under the weather and unable to speak over in the States. And Vixen Marie is in a bit of a state too, secret rage over in the States. And for her, it's been going on for nearly a month. So get well soon, all you guys. We miss you. If you're watching this, if unconsciousness hasn't overtaken you. But yeah, get well soon. I don't know what it is at the moment. It's probably traveling on the strange jet stream. I couldn't resist putting that funny clip up at the top of the show, which showed the virtual town of Avalon getting flooded. Believe me, that was not serious at all compared with what we're getting in the real world here over in Europe. Apparently, Portugal is pretty wet, and half of the west of England is effectively underwater and isolated. And guess what? It's going to get worse next week and for the next 3 weeks. Anyway, we are safe here because we're wrapped up warm in a lovely virtual environment with all our pals. And so long as the power lines and the internet don't go down, we can just take succor in wonderful virtual spaces like Second Life, where we're broadcasting from today. And it becomes Second Life to be the leading news piece this week in terms of general metaverse, because Linden Lab, we've been talking for a couple of weeks about the sudden departure of Linden Labs CEO, Rod Humble, former CEO, I should say. But he has, we didn't hear much from Linden Lab about this, but he has been replaced rather quickly, because this week they broke the news that we have a new CEO, even though he actually doesn't start until tomorrow. He's already on the social networks and things, sort of thanking everybody for welcoming him. Hasn't really told us much about what he'll be doing, but then again, if he doesn't start till tomorrow, I think we can understand why. So later on, I think we'll be discussing, what we would like to see maybe in the future of Second Life under new management. And having read up a little bit about him, we'll pursue that when we get the full debate, as it were. The links I've got ready for that are also as yet unloaded because they're in my other section. Standards going to give you the usual weekly rundown of sort of stuff on the web and stuff, news from the greater metaverse. Now, there's a site called k0.com. There's actually two interesting pieces. I'll get to the second one in a couple of minutes. But they had a post during the week about flying first class in economy with virtual worlds. And the idea here is apparently that aeroplanes are getting so overcrowded, they're actually considering creating a virtual environment so that airline passengers will have the illusion of more space around them than they've really got. Rather odd take on the idea of employing virtuality, but you can check out K0's blog for that. I'll give you the link to his blog a little bit later. The Great Canadian Grid, which is one of the quite new independent open sim grids, dedicated, as you can probably gather, to Canadian life, really. They've actually been offline for a couple of days, but it's good news because they're upgrading to dedicated new servers, and by tomorrow they'll be fully back online at high speed and all the things you expect of a decent open sim grid. Now, the other links, I actually have the actual links over here, so I'll go straight to them. I have a Ariane's Life in the Metaverse, interesting blog. We don't come to it very much. arianeb.wordpress.com. And they have a blog post, I think it's a she, has a blog post out called "Is the Virtual World Dream Dying?" Well, I think we'll all agree that we hope not. But she really just has some general thoughts that, apart from Second Life, Nuvera Online, Trinity, and various other things she mentions, some interesting sort of thoughts there. You might want to check out. Now, next one here. Is this Hypergrid Business? No, it's not. Nara's Nuke. This is a blog, and you can find it as naranok.blogspot.com. And her news really is something called the Hypergrid Stories Project. She's misspelled hypergrid, but I think we'll forgive them that. We've got hypergrid here. But this is a project to do with building community across virtual worlds. And it's really focused on a story project that will take place across various grids that are connected by the hypergrid. So check out naranok.blogspot.com for that one. Now, over at Information Week, Information Week is a highly read sort of newspaper in the tech business, I suppose. And Mitch Wagner, an old friend of ours, frequently writes a column there. And when he gets a chance, he just try to sort of remind people that Second Life is still around. And he actually had a post this week. You'll find it at informationweek.com. Information Week is all one word. And Second Life founder pursues second chance. And obviously it mentions Second Life by way of introducing Philip Raisdale, but it's principally about high fidelity and Philip's new projects there. Next, what is next, he says? Right, is Second Life a world or a game? One woman's answer. Well, this is just incidental, really. This is actually at examiner.com in a section called Game On. Basically, I guess if you go to examiner.com and look up Second Life or whatever, it will pull up the piece. It was actually posted on the 30th of January, so it's not the latest from this week. But basically, one woman's answer. Again, it's just one of those interesting reviews we come across that is reflections and personal thoughts from one person, but sort of quite interesting to read. Now, thanks to Nara Pay's blog, which you can find as always at modemworld.wordpress.com. That's MODEMWORLD. Basically, it's an announcement about something that's happening here in the UK. It's a seminar on current and future practice using virtual worlds in higher education. And it's going to be happening over here at the University of Manchester, which is somewhat further up north from London here, in the UK, on Friday, March the 14th. So if you'd like some basic info about what's going on there, Inara actually has a good summary for you. So that's modemworld.wordpress.com. Now, I mentioned K0 earlier. They also had another post up in the week, which I've seen very little traction since I posted it on Twitter, actually. You can find this at k0.co.uk. That's the letter K, zero.co.uk. And the headline of this piece is Legends of Oz branded virtual goods in Bloxworld. Now, apparently there is a forthcoming movie called Legends of Oz, and they are bringing online a sort of virtual world sort of thing with virtual goods, and it basically is a tie-in with this Legends of Oz movie, but they've partnered with an app called Bloxworld. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with Bloxworld, it's actually one of the new wave apps that are by Linden Lab. And indeed, recently, when the new CEO came in recently, a lot of the press releases have actually focused on the fact that Bloxworld is Linden Lab's new big player, so to speak. They haven't ignored Second Life, but The general gist of it is that Blocks World has been a big success for Linden Lab, where maybe some of their other little sidelines haven't been. I don't know. But presumably this is very good news for Linden Labs and promoting Block Worlds, because it will be tying in with the Legends of Oz movie. To what extent, I don't really know, but you can find more about that. So it's k0.co.uk. Pardon me. Another quick link I've got here is to a site called RecodeNet, ReCode.net. And the title of the post here is Gaming Minds Search for the Sweet Pot. Sorry, start there again. I think this is a tongue twister. Gaming Minds Search for the Sweet Spot Between Physical and Virtual Worlds. There, I got through it without twisting my tongue a second time. This really is a more abstract sort of piece, basically about the way gaming platforms are approaching connections with the physical world, and vice versa, and of course virtual worlds are very much included in that, as is alternate reality or augmented reality, basically all the technologies that are starting to affect the way we interface and subsequently affecting the way we interface with the metaverse per se. So you can find that at recode.net. Gaming Minds Search for the Sweet Spot Between Physical and Virtual Worlds. Tongue to a knot. It's a nice headline, isn't it? And finally, one of somebody who's known very well in Second Life and some other virtual worlds, BotGirl. www.botgirl.com, and she has a post up. Virtual world features dash productizing the platform. And again, this is one of those sort of overviewy type blogs, but she's always got something good to say, so you may care to read that. Right, well, that's my, I think that's all the things on my list here. It certainly looks like it. I'm going to be opening another list shortly, which is my Inworld links, which includes some sort of background and stuff like that on our new CEO at Second Life. But meanwhile, I think it's time to hand over to Tara for her take on the week. So over to you, Tara.
Thank you. Yes, thank you, Mel.
The coughing's endemic, isn't it?
Oh well, no, the coughing was you caught me just about ready and wasn't quite there. So anyway, greetings from the RL of the Pacific Northwest, where we're coming out of a string of rather cold but clear weather and actually getting some precipitation again. And actually, most of it's been going into Oregon and California. And I know neither of them are complaining very much about the moisture, especially California. It's going to be wetter around here this week, and I don't think anybody's going to complain. At least we're not buried in the depths of snow that the eastern two-thirds of the country has been over the last month, or the depths of rain that Mel has reported from the UK, various places where flooding has been going on for a long time.
Indeed.
Anyway, to just kind of kick off, if hopefully Geo, who's on camera today, can zoom out a little bit, I can introduce this week's special guests, who are this year's third birthday anniversary celebration birthday kitties from Kitty Cats. One of the birthday kitties you can pick up at the store, but the other one you have to follow the trail of birthday cakes, which have links in each successive one to get all the links, and then you can come back and get the second one, and then you have a breeding pair. Anyway, they're very cute. They're right next to me, so between me and Mouse on the arms of the chair. So at some point, I'm sure Geo can kind of zoom in and give you a close up of these are babies. They were just born yesterday, so they're not full size yet. But I couldn't resist kind of doing the little hunt and collecting my birthday kitty cats for this year. And let's see. Mal, that item you had on early on about the use of virtual reality in airplanes to create the illusion of more space. That immediately brought up kind of scary thoughts of, we have this perfect storm going on of in air travel between the airlines' endeavors to make the amount of per passenger space smaller and smaller in order to cram more people into the planes, colliding with the fact that at least in developed parts of the world, humans are getting larger. and so well, let's just why don't we just stuff them in sacks, stack the stacks on top of each other, and plug everybody in to Oculus Rift gadgets as part of getting on board the plane, and then they can just be in whatever reality for the duration of the flight.
I mean, at the end of the day, I think an organic teleport system would be rather useful, but
yeah, really.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I just
wishful thinking.
Yeah. Anyway, so much on that item. Well, obviously, we're going to come back around on talking about Ebba Altberg. But before we do, I should also point out, not only did particularly Twitter did the Second Life Twitterati pounce on Ebba as soon as he appeared in Twitter with welcomes and various comments. It wasn't but maybe 2 hours after the first news leaked that the first parody turned up, which was Ebba Altberg, our new Jewish send-up. Yeah.
It was so much of a coincidence that Second Lie donated account a few minutes before that one.
yes, very, 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 very suspect. But Rebbe Altberg is having a wonderful time. So if you are on Twitter, do follow Rebbe as well as Ebba, because it'll be worthwhile, I'm sure. Anyhow, we'll come back around on that subject, since I'm sure other people have thoughts, and I have some thoughts too. Well, and also something we'll definitely be coming back to, because Saffia is with us today, is the 1 billion Rising for Justice, which happens next Saturday. And but the item that caught my attention on that is that not only will there be the dancing piece of this, but poets across Second Life will be adding their voices to the music with 2 special poetry sessions, including an open mic. It'll be at 8 o'clock and 13, that's 3 p.m. Second Life time, and a special area that's 2D art on the 1 billion Rising regions. And if you're a poet and would like to participate, contact Jilly Kidd, Inworld, and we can come back to that. All kinds of, this is Valentine's week, and Valentine's Day is next Saturday, of course, and the Second Life official Second Life Sims Isle of View have opened, but also opening on February 14th. Oh, that's Friday. All right. I'm off by a day. Oh, well. Breno is unveiling her newest immersive piece on Friday. The Singularity of Kumiko is an interactive story in which the visitor is very much a participant, and as such open to some of the dangers inherent in the narrative. The sim is immersive. IMMERSIVA, and that sounds like a do not miss. Not necessarily on the 14th, but during the time that it's on. Let's see, Firestorm. Lots of us are Firestorm viewer fans, and I think more than a few of us have been eagerly awaiting for the beta release to get out of beta and start picking up some of the newer options that are available in the main viewer. And they are having on Saturday, the 15th, they're having a Q&A session to covering what's coming out in the beta version 4.5.2, which has been under beta evaluation for the last week or so, and is looking good. And part of it will be apparently involved in some of the decisions to be made about that version. And let's see, the Firestorm team is promising some, quote, exciting news, unquote, at that session. And yes, references to some great news and exciting times are coming within the blog post announcing the meeting. It has led to speculation, of course, as these things do. You know, those are the teasers to get people talking, you hope. And let's see, as well as working directly on the viewer, members of the Firestorm team have been working on integrating leap motion into the viewer. And so rumors have been circulating about that the next release will include leap motion support. That would make you happy, Mel. And also, apparently, some quote, nice little surprise waiting for Second Life photographers, and possibly for Linux users as well. So the meeting is Saturday, the 15th. Let's see if I've got a time on that. At 2 p.m. Second Life time. Will be in the Phoenix Firestorm Support Island Theater. Your Firestorm user, follow the link to the Q&A posting in their blog. Not much particularly above that would have gotten to the radar or been particularly noticeable as far as official rollouts from Second Life this week in the usual updates that happen. But one thing caught my attention in the items that NR covered. There apparently was some work on Vivox, which is the voice chunk of Second Life. On Tuesday, maintenance was performed, and it was mostly quality enhancements for people using the most recent version of the voice SDK, which is the software development stuff. But these changes didn't involve any changes to the Sims, but it's questionable whether that enhancement would affect those using third-party viewers with older versions of the SDK, which includes the Firestorm 4.4.2, which is the current the release version of Firestorm. So stay tuned on that if you've been having voice issues, and particularly with third-party viewers, that you may want to kind of follow that one a bit. Let's see. Oh, an update on an item from last week. I mentioned that there was an announcement of an SL Bloggers conference that we thought was going to be the 7th and 9th, i.e. Thursday, Friday, and Saturday of this week. It has been postponed and is not going to be happening until April. I think the organizers discovered they had bitten off a little more than they could chew to deal with time constraints of those involved in planning it. Funny thing about that, these things do take more time to put together than sometimes people realize. So that'll be coming in April, so watch for more when that comes around. Seems there was one more thing I had on here, and I don't know what it was. So I'm going to leave it at that for now and turn it back over to Mel and let him. Certainly, we've got a couple of guests here to introduce, and there's this rabbit that's been keeps hopping around my feet.
We love to have fun and games here, don't we? Okay, well, many thanks, Tom. And just before I introduce our guests, I'm going to quickly go to my other feed, which is the Inworld stuff, and just a couple of things you haven't covered, Tara, basically. And I wonder if the missing item that you can't find has something to do with kitty cats celebrating their 3rd birthday. I
led with that.
Oh, you did? Okay, I must have been switching.
I introduced the kitty cats that are sitting on the arms of our chair, which are the birthday kitty cats.
And you know what it's like when we do a switchover. There's a momentary disconnect. Okay. Fair enough. So yes. That's all fine. And of course, the birthday party was on Friday, so there's no point in announcing that. Okay.
But the hunt is on, and I'm not sure how long that goes on. But
okay.
If you're into kitty cats, go do it.
Right, now I think we're going to be talking this and more as the conversation goes on. But the Relay for Life for SL 2014 team registration opened yesterday, Saturday the 8th, and I've got the reports out from Daniel Voyager, who we monitor all the while, don't we, Dan? If you're out there, and you can find that Daniel Voyager wordpress.com, and he's got various information there and the links. So this is if you want to actually participate in the Relay for Life sort of events throughout the year. They sort of set up teams well ahead of schedule and things like that. We have Saffia with us today, and I've got a feeling she will know far more about that than I do. Mine of information that she is. Now, Tara also just mentioned this. I've been monitoring as ever Kara secondlife.com. That's Kara Second Life, or one word, .blogspot.com. And she had a post on Friday about I Love You, which is Linden Labs Valentine's Sim, open again this year, and you can find the link to the Second Life destination and everything there. But what I really wanted to mention is headlining her article. She just has a beautiful photo, which is an aerial view of the Isle of View, and it is the sim itself is sort of heart shaped, as in a Valentine's heart, and it's just lovely looking at this picture. I almost don't need to teleport in there to see it from the air. It looks absolutely incredible. So I'm sure that is a lovely romantic place for you to spend the latter half of next week. If you can't resist, you can go earlier too. Blogging SL, which is bloggingsl, one word, .net. Have the Friday Hunt report, of course. Now, there's always really far too many hunts for us to list, so I'm just going to tell you to go along there. From what I can see, the grid-wide hunts, there are about 40 to 50 going on at the moment. And as for the sim and store hunts, there's another couple of dozen there. So there's a big list of active hunts going on there as at Friday, a couple of days back. So you might want to check out bloggingsl.net for more on that. Kara's Corner again. Now, well, actually, it was before the show came live that we mentioned this, but LEA 13 has, I guess the word is an exhibit for the next few months by somebody called Xenop Guisse, Xineohp, second name Guisse. I have almost certainly mispronounced that, but since I've spelt it, you get the idea. And this is something called Lost Garden of Sundarya Lahari. Again, I don't know whether that's based on real life or not, but this is an absolutely sublime looking sim to visit. Beauty is the word to describe it. Kara's blog has a whole load of photographs from that on it if you want to get a flavour of it before tackling the lag. But it seems well worthy of a visit indeed, and we might be talking more about that when we bring guests in shortly. Ziki Questy's blog, which you can find at zikiquesty.blogspot.com, ZIKIQUESTI. Has it's a revisit really to a place called a Mushroom. The mush is in lowercase and the room is all in uppercase for some reason. And this apparently is a build dating back to 2009 by a chap called Scottius Polkey. And it's still there. And she's done a revisit. And yesterday, in fact, between 2 and 3, they actually held a question and answer session about how he built the grid and everything else. So that's over, unless it's been recorded. But very interesting to go. So you look up Mushroom or go to zikiquesty.spot.com. Another installation, again, this is one I haven't been to. I'll be asking my guests about this in a while. It's called Tales of the Future. And all I have here, the photos are taken at somewhere called Space for Art, which, the sim name is Space and then the number 4 and then art. And those are 3 separate words, if you count the number 4s, of course. And I'm actually just looking at the pictures from a blog that is actually very highly recommended. It's called Lover Dag's Second Life Photo Diary, and he or she just publishes a lot of photos several times a week. Good photos of good destinations, basically. And if you want to see the pictures, go to Loverdag. That's LOVERDAG.wordpress.com. And otherwise, look at Tales of the Future Inworld. Another spectacular looking thing. I'm back to Kara's Corner again here. So once again, we're at Kara's Second Life blogspot.com. Mad P Celebrity Auction happening on February the 23rd. Yes, indeed. Now, this is a sort of anecdotal little thing in a way. I mean, Mad P are actually raising money for the Feed Us Smile program, and they're going to have an auction of avatars on Sunday, February 23rd. 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. And I think the idea is you sort of book a date with these avatars. And the reason I find this post rather funny is that the example they've given is our good friend Will Burns, who you know from this show. In fact, he even mentions the fact that he's been on this show. Apparently, he is one of the people that is being auctioned off, and Cara does a nice job of promoting him to encourage people to spend as much money as they can at the auction to buy Will Burns. So, Will, if you're out there, good luck. Hope you don't get lumbered. You never know, you see, who the highest paying person is going to be. Metaverse Television did one of those at one point and raised a rather lot of money. But I think the winner and the prize, as it were, weren't exactly a perfect match. But there you go. It's all in a good cause. So makes me laugh, actually. And Noah Pay, again, on her blog, has got a recent blog. Everybody's been covering it this week, basically, Lost in the Garden of Sounds. And this, again, is the same Lost Gardens I mentioned a while ago, but Inawa's got more pictures of that. And get ready to... Oh, yes, Tara mentioned this. Minara Pay has also got a post at modernworldwordpress.com on get ready to immerse yourself in the singularity of Kumiko. That's actually the new Brno item that Tara mentioned. And if you were watching the show last week, we also showed you a preview video of that. But Inara has been given a sort of advanced access to the piece before it opens on Friday and has reported accordingly. So check out that. And at first glance, anyway, that's just my sort of other little additions. All these come, by the way, from my Twitter feed, twitter.com/malburns_writer. And just on a personal note, I was looking there today, and I was looking at my main Twitter account, which probably gets less stuff in it these days. And I've got umpteen thousand followers, really. I'm not bragging. But I looked at my Malburns Writer account and I realized that I'm only in the hundreds of followers. So, and oddly enough, that is the one I post mostly to these days with in-world events, destinations, hunts, and all that sort of stuff. I was surprised. I almost thought it would be the other way around, that one would be getting more traction. So do check it out if you want links as we go from week to week. Anyway, I think
there's a reason for that, and that's because for the longest time you did all your posting on Mal Burns.
Oh, sure.
And it was only a year or so back that you started using Mal Burns Writer to distinguish specific stuff to Second Life.
Yeah, it's a bit longer than that, and I did promote it on the other one for a while. But yeah, basically, I have a Twitter account called Malburns where you get all the metaverse news from a sort of broad perspective, whereas Malburns Writer's account is very much in-world sort of stuff. Same idea, just posting links to relevant stuff. Sometimes the link will go to both, but the focus there is things to do in worlds, mostly Second Life, but also in worlds and Damnation and any other places that pop up, really. So PR is over. It is really time I got round to introducing my guests. I did manage, rather successfully, I'm pleased to say, to find two people who are not in bed with the flu without working voices. I'm hoping their lip sync is working too, and that would really make our day. And they've both been here before. One of you is, well, the first of them you know very well, of course, because she's often been with us at very regular intervals, and it's none other than Saffia Widdershins. Hi, Saffia.
Hello, Mal.
Welcome back to the show, Miss Busy Bee, always. So, you know.
Thank you. Yes.
The reason for your absence lately has been, sorry, busy. Sorry, busy. Which is
certain TV show that has taken a lot of my time, and now 1 billion rising. So, yeah, but...
Well, we'll come to that in a second, because we've got a pal of yours with us too, and that's none other than Victor Mornington. Welcome, Victor.
Hello, Mal. Hello, everyone.
Don't you just love this broad Scottish accent? It's he actually lives in the same patch of island as me, but he's way north, and they talk funny up there, but actually talk rather nice, don't they? Victor is, of course, a DJ and a builder, and all sorts of other things, and amongst other things, he built the stage for 1 Billion Rising, which we'll be getting a little sneak preview of in a while, I think. So, welcome, Victor.
Thanks, Mal.
Right. Now, where to start? It's very
well, I can follow up on something you said, actually, about celebrity auctions.
Oh, very good. Yes. Why don't we start there? Before we get on to new CEOs and all that, we'll get some of the other stuff out of the way.
Well, first of all, I'm up for auction, I should say, as well. I've offered to help out. I think it would actually probably be better if instead of auctioning me, they just got me to do the Oscar-style presentation for a bit, you know, like we do, like Elric and I do for the Christmas Expo. I don't think I'll raise very much money, but someone else here is quite likely to raise a bit more, because I believe Victor's also up for auction.
It's in the voice, isn't it? Yeah.
It is.
Gotta have him, as the ladies say.
But then although I knew I wouldn't be, you know, I'm probably not in great demand myself, I put up someone who I believe will be. And that is Mr. Biggins.
Oh, Biggins!
Him, yeah.
Oh, Mr. Biggins.
Which one?
Well, I think they'll probably be allowed to choose whether it be Obadiah or Jebediah. The idea is that you will be able. I don't think anyone will want to date with Mr. Biggins. He's the only member of the Black Americas to have his own fan club, after all. But when you bid on Mr. Biggins, if you win the auction, you will get a chance to be a part of a Babbage episode of Designing Worlds, and you'll also get a chance to have an input into the plot as well if you want one. We did that for Relay for Life a couple of years ago, and it was very popular in Babbage, and I hope it'll be popular with the wider audience too. Yeah, the only person who raised more money that night than Mr. Biggins was Victor. So,
yeah, we could start the auction now if anybody's in the in our chat room. Give us an idea of how much you would bid for a date with. I guess it's a date, really, isn't it? With Victor Mornington. You'll be hearing his voice throughout the program. Give us your best estimates so that we can go to the bookies. Oh, nice one. Yeah, so all this is to raise money for Feed a Smile, which of course is a very worthy thing going on. Now, talking of worthy things going on, let's move to the end of this coming week. This time next week, it will be over. 1 billion rising. Tell us about that stuff, yeah.
Right. 1 Billion Rising is, of course, the international event that's going on February the 14th, Friday. And this year it's called 1 Billion Rising for Justice. And it's a huge event involving people all over the world. And it's about the fact that 1 billion women in the world are liable to face rape or serious abuse at some point in their life. And we therefore, this has been an event that's been ongoing. It really took off last year all over the world. There were videos of women in Bhutan, in Africa, all over the world joining in, dancing, rising for justice. And that's going to be continuing this year. Last year we had the first Second Life Inworld event for this, and we're doing it again this year. We've got 24 hours of music, some of it DJs, some of it actually with live performers. We've got 4 Sims, a stage that's going to take out beyond 4 Sims so that there'll be plenty of room for dancing. And that's designed by Victor over here. It's men and women. It's not an exclusive for women event. It's for everyone. And there's also art. All around the edges of the 4 Sims, there are installations by different artists. I think 12 of those are individual art installations. And then there will be a section for 3D art and a section for 2D art. And the 2D art will be the arena where the poetry events will take place. That's an innovation for this year. We're having 2 poetry events, which will partly be readers and partly, you talked about this, partly open mic sessions, so other people can take part.
Well, wonderful. I'm just Geo Meek. Thanks to Geo Meek out there, by the way, who's on camera for us today. Those of you watching now will actually see the camera moving around, showing you the map of the event and a kind of miniature stage replica in the middle. This is really a map. Am I right in thinking the model we saw earlier has just been put on top of the map there to give us...
That's right.
Right,
to give you an idea of what it will be like.
Okay, so...
and that's how it will be. The green areas will be landscape, be paths to the stage. And that's a model of the stage built by Victor, which we're very excited about.
I was just going to say, let's bring Victor in here. Maybe you'd like to tell us a bit about that stage. It's in plywood at the moment, pending the decorators arriving during the week, isn't it?
Yeah, the decorators arrive on Tuesday.
Very good.
It was a very, very quick model. Last year's stage for 1 Billion Rising was also built by me. And if you were at the event for OBR last year, and even if you weren't, you can look up the 1 Billion Rising Flickr account. Last year's stage was decidedly steampunk. Because that's what I'm immersed in. I'm one of the land admins for New Babbage. So I'm decidedly steampunk. This year, I went with a more modern look, just to totally flip the coin over.
Indeed. Yeah, I'm confused. I don't know why there isn't sort of big TARDIS, and then you open the TARDIS and you go, and you go in, and it appears to be bigger.
Don't tempt me, because there's actually things out there in Second Life. You can actually have just a single little police box in the middle, and people walk into the police box and they get teleported up into the stage. But that would just confuse people.
It's funny. I think actually it's on OpenSim, but I think it was a download or something that I saw off, which is of a TARDIS that apparently works like the real thing. You walk in to what seems to be, a normal-sized police box on a sim, and somehow it takes you in to a huge big TARDIS, which must be a teleporting job, but it creates the illusion, you just walk in, and the moment you're in a different place, which is considerably bigger. It must be a wonderful effect, you know. I mean, it's sort of whether you follow Doctor Who or not. I mean, it's sort of the idea that you just walk in a door or into a small cupboard, and suddenly, you know, it's like, what's that? Lion the Witch, the Wardrobe, isn't it? Suddenly, on the other side of this cupboard, there is a huge world. Fascinating idea. Okay, yeah, I couldn't resist that because you are very much what the Doctor Who fraternities too. Steampunk, Doctor Who, and lots of good building to boot. So what inspired the poetry thing this year, Saffia? That sounds really interesting because, you know, I don't want to put a spoiler on this, but there have been criticisms about 1 billion rising over and beyond its the Second Life component of it, is that you know, it's treated as a sort of celebration of empowerment, independence, and a quest for you know, fair equality when it comes down to it. But I have heard that some victims of, you know, some of these indescribable events have sort of felt that the celebratory nature is one that you know, isn't wholly appropriate, or maybe it just brings up too many memories for them or something. But the idea that maybe you're including, you know, when I think of poetry, I think of a much more literary kind of take on things. You know, the idea that maybe people will be reading poems that bring home a message in a much more profound way interests me. What brought on the sort of arrival of the poetry into it?
Well, I think one of the reasons is that Tarlyn Gravois is involved this year. And she's actually looking after the artists who are doing art installations. And coming back, I'll come back to that in a sec. But she ran some literary events at Bern this year. She introduced literary events into Bern. I found they were very successful, very popular, and it gave a kind of slightly different slant on things. And when she suggested that we should do poetry readings at OBR, I thought it was a brilliant idea. I thought it reached out to another community and gave them a chance to express themselves. The argument about the celebratory nature and the dancing, that element is there. But if you remember, some of the art last year, some of the installations that artists had installed were deeply moving and really thoughtful and thought-provoking.
Yeah.
And I think that what we want to do is to create an event that gives space for thought and reflection and celebration as well. It's very difficult to do in one day and only 4 Sims. But that's our aim, to get people in and to make them think and to help them become better informed. At the corner of the stage, you'll see a sort of information kiosk, and we'll be having that at the event this year. It will be full of information about organisations that are supporting women, campaigning for women, and so forth. And we will. We've got some interesting stuff. There will be details of organisations if people want to get involved. Last year, people asked me if they could donate, and the answer then is the same as the answer this year, which is that if you want to donate, there is information on lots of organisations within the information kiosk. You can pick one of those and donate to them directly, or you can find a local group, a local organisation, and donate that. 1 billion Rising isn't about raising money at all. We have wonderful sponsors who cover our costs, and there are 16 sponsors who each donate a quarter of a sim. Other people have donated things like these T-shirts. If Geo doesn't mind, I'll stand up and just show this off. I'm wearing a T-shirt and a jacket, which was created by Liv Glam, and that's one of the that's their and you'll see this wonderful bear who hopefully you'll see in lots of
It's
places.
funny. I had a link open here, and I was just going to ask you about the bears. The ODL second bear, yeah.
The bears have been created by Sway Dench of Sways, actually. And she has long made the cookie bears, and they are completely wonderful. And she's made this beautiful little bear that you can actually stand up and hold. He's sitting on the arm of my chair at the moment. Yeah, and there's a larger version for display purposes as well. And those, hopefully, you'll see around with information inside.
Yeah, I was watching the camera zooming in here, and for the life of me, it looked like a barcode until we closed in, and I saw the writing. It's a very tall font. Am I going to swipe that? Yeah. Oh, wonderful. Yeah. So you can come away with one of those too. I suppose you could turn up wearing a bear too. I know there's enough avatar bears around. You could have a sort of bear dancing session.
Yeah.
Saffia, where are the big bears available?
You will have to ask me for those. They're not going to be widely available. But if you would like to display one on your sim with information, I'll be sending them out tomorrow to our sponsors. And if other people would like to display them, I will send them a copy too.
Yeah, well, we can
send me one, please.
And we can have one. We can have one on stage here for the duration of the week as well.
Fantastic. I haven't sent them out before because they will have landmarks in, and we only got the Sims today, so didn't know where they're going to be.
Fair enough. So, come the end of the week, everybody get on over some Billion Rising and celebrate. And so that, I mean, I think as long as you maintain that contrast of the serious and the celebratory, you're fine, so hopefully it'll be a big event, complete with a decorated stage, which will enhance the plywood no end, no doubt. So let's move on. Actually, I had a couple of couple of things here. No, well, I'll come back to them. We'll be I'll bring Victor in for that in a minute. Okay, now, while I've still got you, Saffia, so to speak, we will be showing later in the show a double whammy of the Black Mirror, which is episode 5, and of course newly released. It will be showing it slightly after 2, but basically it premieres at 2 p.m. today. Episode 6 of series 2, of course, which is the final episode. So the second series is effectively all out of the way, I'm sure. I'm sure you're planning a third series. Something tells me that. Maybe you'd like to elaborate on immense work that's gone into this current series anyway.
Yes, well, the final episode goes out today. I think it's going to break your heart. I think that it's just wonderful. It was filmed actually on location in New Babbage in Victor's house. Victor very kindly let us throw up and tear down walls and rearrange furniture and say, no, we've got to have that picture on that wall. Thank you very much. We generally behaved like a typical film crew and disrupted his life entirely.
Was it worth it? Was it worth it, Victor? Did they pay enough to cover the damage?
They were very well behaved. It's Black and Mirror. It is one really good show. Really good show.
It is. And so we filmed a large chunk of it there, and the other place we filmed was Garnet Saltery's house in New Babbage. She'd actually decorated a room beautifully for us, and you'll see that as well. And there's also an amazing prison carriage, which was originally made by, and I think the Ladies' Pleasure team got hold of it as well, didn't they, Victor? Because
Where are we going with this?
Ladies' pleasure are horses, the horses team, and they have the wonderful horses. Previously, when I've worked with this sort of thing, we've always had horses that were kind of pieces of AI. This year, I talked to Honey Hart, and she offered her, because we first came across her when we saw her doing dressage with her horses at SL10B. And her horses are avatars, and it's all about the relationship, working relationship between the horse and the rider, or the horse and the carriage driver. So this time we actually had avatar horses, and they're brilliant. They are amazing.
I have one.
Absolutely gorgeous. Yeah.
It's a bit more cumbersome than my cat, but I do kind of like my horse avatar. It's great because I can get somebody else can ride me. Or they can get on me and I drive, so to speak. So you have the choice. It's very fun, great fun. Clomp, clomp, clomp everywhere. But they're a bit big. Pussycats are slightly more agile. And anyway, sorry, there's a slight diversion there.
So anyway, the fifth episode finds them travelling to Babbage. Some people may have seen that by now. And the last episode finds them in Babbage. And it's heartbreaking. And the music that Laura and Tone wrote for this episode. Oh, God, you'll just well up. You really will.
Okay, so a bit of
you're going to have to wait.
Advance warning, folks. Between now and
tissues.
2 o'clock. Yeah, tissues between now and 2 o'clock, because or shortly after, because you're going to need them. We are assured.
And then you'll have to wait till the autumn to find out what happens next.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and do keep watching after the titles. There's one of those shocks after the end time.
Yes, inevitably. I think that happened in season 1, didn't it? The titles kept old, and everybody thought, "Wow!" And then, oops.
You see, if they had stayed away from New Babbage, nothing bad would have happened to them.
Exactly. Just take a little detour somewhere else, and it would all live happily ever after. But no luck. They ended up in New Babbage. What could possibly go wrong?
What could possibly go wrong? And yes, it all went wrong again.
So, I guess we will shortly be into a new season of Designing Worlds too. While you're here.
Yes, we will. That's coming back on the 17th of January.
January? That's a long way off.
Sorry, February. Yes. It's coming back on the 17th of February. We've had a long Christmas break this time because there's been other things going on, like OBR and getting Black Mirror out. So we're coming back with a show which is going to be a kind of tribute to Valentine's Day, which will be just before. And it's set at the Twin Sims of Ode and Oubliette, which is owned by Sage Lotus, and it's absolutely beautiful. We were very lucky to get over there just as she was turning it winter to spring. And so we have some wonderful shots of this gorgeous sim in the winter, and then we have some equally wonderful shots of the sim in the spring.
That's nice. It's a bit, but it seems to change the seasons regularly. Are quite fun because they like the real world. The leaves come out or something. You don't for a second recognise them as the same place, and then suddenly you realise that underneath all the snow and everything else, it is. Bring on the spring is what I say.
Yeah.
And I don't mean the April showers. Sorry.
Yes, her textures are just glorious. Just glorious. Let's hope to heaven we don't get any April showers this year. It's the last thing we need.
Yeah, well, exactly. It's warm enough. It's sort of April now, really. We're just getting a long April. So long may it go away. Go away, please. Right. Okay. I've got some other links to interesting destinations. I don't really know about them. One of the links I've got up here, SL Inquirer, it does a very good job of reporting on a wide range of sort of in-world immersive things and general things. And they have one log on Friday called "What Goes On in Jazz Clubs Stays in Jazz Clubs." And this is all about jazz clubs in Second Life. A report by Star Eyes Galaxy, who's one of their regulars. If you want to know a bit more about jazz clubs, check out the www.slinquirer.com. And I have another link for them coming up. Oh, actually, I'll mention it now just to get it out of the way. Another at the same site earlier in the week on Thursday. Piers Diesel, who's their other main reporter, has an article on amusement parks in Second Life, basically a review of all the things that would qualify in sort of a general term of theme parks. And there are actually quite a lot of theme parks built in Second Life where you just go along and indulge in a kind of theme and enjoy yourself. And our friend Petlove actually once took me to, well, it wasn't a theme park at all, but her idea of hanging out actually the sort of gaming sim. I don't mean sort of, like computer games. It had all sorts of little things like dice, things on boards, and snakes and ladders, and probably chess and all those things, where you actually go to the sim and you just hang out with people and you play the sort of games you would play in a sitting room somewhere, which is quite fun too. So they've got a roundup of various amusement parks over at South Inquirer. But coming back to the jazz thing, I don't know how many either of you two actually saw the opening clip at the top of the Metal First Week in Review program, but there was it was a clip from somebody who's not involved in Second Life, but they're clearly involved in music, and they're reporting on sort of music in virtual worlds, and they were going through the long line of the Suzanne Vegas and Duran Durans and people that came into Second Life. They also covered Second Life performers, but they finished on this sort of rather sour note, which was sort of, would you really want to pay $60 a time to see a fake Beyonce? And they were somewhat more critical. It was a very good report, but they were somewhat more critical at the end when it actually came to showing footage of mime artists, shall we say, in World, miming to artist tracks, sometimes with full permission, I might add, but they were actually questioning what is the value of going in to see, a real world performer in World when it's not the real world performer. It's simply some avatars that have reached a contractual arrangement to mime to a live record, live CD, whatever. And you're quite heavily involved in music, aren't you? As a DJ, at least, Victor. I wonder if you have any thoughts on that sort of
Yeah, it's a tricky subject. I used to. I don't now. I used to DJ in a lot of well-known 80s clubs. It's the 80s clubs that mostly drag all the people in, because people like myself in their 30s. I've just had my birthday, by the way, and I'm getting older and older as the years go on.
You don't need to tell me that, mate. Happy birthday, whatever it was.
Yeah, 38. I'm 38. Real life, but most of the people in Second Life that go to clubs are roughly the same age as me, late 30s going into their 40s, that grew up in the 80s. And I've been to a lot of clubs, and I've worked in a lot of big clubs that went down the road that reporter reported on, of general avatars miming along to shows being played on the stream. The only pop group I know from the 80s that are still in Second Life to this day is, of course, Duran Duran. They've got their own set of sims. They've been there for a long time now. I don't know the last time that the Duran Duran group actually played live in World. I think it was a few months ago now, but I know they still do it. But that's the only group I know, and there was a lot of them back in 2007. Going into 2008, there was actually a lot of pop groups, real pop groups in World, and they all sort of fell off 2009 going into 2010, and now we're in 2014. The only big one left from the 80s is Duran Duran. All the rest are gone.
It depends on how you see big. I mean, there's
true.
There is Red Zone, for example, playing Second Life a lot, and they you know, if you follow their blogs and stuff, you know, they're on world tours at the same time. You know, like a Second Life gig is just another gig while they're, you know, probably a free night on the tour or something. There is, you know, there is some of this crossover still, but it's, you know, I think it's the mime thing, you know, I mean,
Yeah.
you look at Japanese culture and things like that, where karaoke is very big. That's not mime. That is totally different, and you know, I get videos coming in of, you know, sort of so and so performing a Second Life, and a woman standing up strumming a guitar or whatever, or just holding a microphone, and she's clearly doing a karaoke job over a backing track, and not always, you know, but I think that is sort of fair because it's clearly karaoke. But I must say, you know, I love looking at that virtual Pink Floyd band and the show they put on, in particles and all the effects and everything. But there is always something disturbing to me, you know, that you know, is mime. And of course, you know, there's with the Floyd, you know, I think it's uncanny seeing somebody like somebody miming to Rick White, who of course is no longer with us. You know, there's just something nagging me when I see these things, and I think that report hit on it slightly. You know, whether you know that is justified, because they do get big audiences, of course. I suppose it's just because people like to hear the stream.
They get massive audiences. The tribute cases in a lot of the big 80s, and there's a lot of big 80s clubs out there. I mean, a couple of the ones I was at, they used to run a tribute series once every month, and when it's groups like AC/DC, the big well-known bands, you're talking about 60, 70 people in the region, just on the verge of crashing the region. That's how busy it gets.
It makes you wonder how much fun it is. I mean, you know, if I see a crowded sim at an event, I just think, oh, I'll pass on that. I hope somebody films it.
Yeah.
You know, because if somebody can manage to film it in all that lag, you know, I'll watch it later. Thank you. I'm not gonna click the button that says go in there. It looks like lag hell. But I'm fussy about that. You know, if it's going to be hard work to go do something, I won't bother. I'm lazy, you know. don't log in for that. But they are very popular, and I've seen videos of these things. So interesting thought. We've discussed it before, but you know, I still feel I'm being cheated a bit there, and you know, I certainly hope that all these virtual mime bands, so to speak, are properly licensed. I know that quite a few of them are, but you know, it would be just so easy for somebody to set on the stage, you know, create themselves as, I don't know, Oasis, and then fire up a live stream and mime to it, you know, without actually getting permission. So it's a bit of a nightmare area.
Well, if I can, the thing I'm wondering, Mal, from the article, which I haven't read, or excuse me, it wasn't an article, it was a video clip.
Yeah.
It's sounding like the video clip is presuming that people going to these events in World are paying to be there, which isn't the case. And
yeah, true.
So that's sort of, you know, that's kind of that's apples and oranges. I mean, the second thing to me is I don't have a problem with people doing that as a tribute band or whatever, as long as they're clearly identifying themselves as that, and not as, you know, it's if somebody pretends to actually be that group, and in no way are they. I mean, that's false advertising. You know, that's.
I think, I think that's the sort of thing that bugs me more, because I'll see videos come online, and you know, the title of the video is Led Zeppelin in Second Life, and maybe the name of the track if it's not a longer thing, and you know, that is misleading. You know, and you know, we've got plenty of tribute bands in the real world these days. There is, I saw on Facebook actually just this morning somebody posting pictures of themselves with Jimmy Page and Robert Plant, except they weren't. They were actually actors with wigs on, and you know, surrounded by kids who were posing with them. But in fact, they were members of a real life tribute band that actually, you know, go on stage and play early Led Zeppelin as no perfect as they can get it, because that's what their business is. It's not being a Led Zeppelin; it's being a total tribute to Led Zeppelin. But yeah, it's a wide world. It's a wide world of possibilities, but yeah, it is misrepresentation. And yeah, I was slightly taken aback by the thing about paying $60 or something, maybe 60 cents. I don't know. I know there are gigs in World which charge you to get in, but I don't think they charge you any real considerable real world money. It's probably a couple of dollars at most in real currency. Anyway, I just thought we grabbed some thoughts on that while I had the those two articles up. And in fact, the clip I thought was very good because it was taken from a totally outworld perspective, looking at music in Second Life, and it's very positive. He only really had, like me, queries about those kind of performances. Destinations. Just before we get on to news, we've still got to get to our new CEO. Yes, folks, the exciting bit still to come. Caitlin. Oh, come on, scroll the right way, please. Kate's World. Caitlin Tobias. CAITLINTOBAIS.com. Had an article in the week just simply called Jrina, JRIINA, which she'd had a landmark posted to her or something, and she potted along to it. And this, the picture as her blog, made me rather want to go there. I suspect it's really tar wrestling too, because the Harry Potter installation in World. We may remember the Hogwarts sort of thing. This ostensibly looks like a rather just beautiful sim, but then there's this strange fairy tale like castle in it, which is clearly handcrafted. It's not one of the British castles. It's, the roofs of all the turrets sort of look like witches' hats with flags on them and stuff like that. It really does look like a sort of joy to visit. So have either of you come across that place at all? I think the answer is
no. I haven't. No.
I'm very good at this, looking at blogs and seeing pictures and thinking, wow, I've got to visit that. And of course, I never get back to it, and can't give first-hand reports. I keep thinking, I've got to go in World and film little short video clips of these visits, offline, and then post them to the show. But of course, the lag and stuff tends to get in the way of all these things these days. But no, this really does look rather spectacular. So if you want to see some pictures, go to CaitlinTobias.com. Which is Kate's World, and maybe pop in World and see it. In fact, it's called Jrina. I presume that is the name of the sim. I'm quickly scrolling down here, of course, and for the life of me, find a slow. So I think we can assume it's called Jrina. Looks great indeed. And okay, I have two other blogs to do with Inworld stuff open, really. Carrie-Anne Lavelle, I think is how you pronounce the name. It's sl.governormarley, or one word, .com. That's GOVERMO. NORMARLEY. And the post there says, why tier model isn't dead yet. And I think a lot of the blogs like this week have been triggered by the presence of the new CEO, and a lot of the blogs are actually just their personal recommendations for things the CEO should look at. Whether, of course, he even knows of any of these blogs is another matter, but they're sort of putting forward their sort of ideas, which is something like I'd like to move into first in a second anyway. And we were talking at Will Burns earlier, up at City of Fridus. I can never... he goes searching for his spectacles here so he can actually read it for you. City of Nidus, SITYOFNIDUS.blogspot.com. Again, I think it was probably... it was yesterday. He had Will Burns had a post up called Jabberwocky. I think we all know Jabberwocky. And he's got a bit of the text in his blog. But again, he's also dived into the thing of addressing things, presumably from an advisor to CEO point of view. So you all know Will. So if you want to check that out, City of Nidus, blogspot.com. So I can close those out the way and move on, I think, to what would we like to see the new CEO do? Now, I've been reading up a little bit about Abby. Apparently, Oldsberg's not the right pronunciation either. It's Oldsberg or something. But I'm gonna call him Ebby Oldsberg for the moment because I'm English and it looks like an Ebby Oldsberg to me. The ebb tide floweth, huh? That one. Right. Linden Lab now have a new CEO. Remarkably, he's arrived and appointed really quickly after the departure of the previous CEO. There's been no interim CEO to speak of in the course of a couple of weeks. So although we found the lab very silent on the departure of Rod Humble, they've certainly replaced him quickly indeed. And the thing that struck me most, I forget whether it was last week or the week before, but we were sort of talking about what was then the hunt for a CEO. And somebody, it may have been on a Macmillan, I can't be too sure, said that they would like a CEO who comes from a social networking background. Now, interestingly, Ebby Oldsberg has history with Microsoft, with Yahoo, but the most recent project he was working on before taking up this position was a Skype-like, albeit for business, a sort of communications tool, which has an app on the iPad and on your desktop. And his most recent endeavor has been a communications focus. So if my pitch to him would be to say, look, I don't think Rod Humble even knew about this, but way before his time, there was a version of the VVox client that was on the desktop, and it allowed you to communicate with your friends and have conversations and continue dialogue with your Inworld contacts without being in world. And, this meant that, when people can be in Second Life, is, a platform where community and presence is all important and collaboration, people could actually extend that, when they're mobile or where they're somewhere they can get to the IM client, but they can't get to Second Life. You could even use it to make voice calls. And it seems to me that the thing it seems to have been working on, well, I for the life of me, I can't remember its name. I've actually got it on my iPad, but not in front of me now, was very much this sort of thing. It was like a Skype-type affair, built for teamwork and business. And I suddenly thought, a return to an annex like that for Second Life, along with maybe a lightweight viewer, maybe the mobile viewer they're working with. Imagine you could have a Skype type thing on your desktop with all your contacts, and you could immediately click a contact that, they could IM you and say, join me in World, and give you a slurl or whatever. And that slurl would launch, a web page with an embedded client or something. It's another approach to possibilities that make accessing the metaverse could equally work with OpenSim or similar things. So my immediate thought was, hey,
Mel, I'm wondering, Saffia has to leave soon, so I would love to hear what Saffia's thoughts on.
Okay, that's
her wish list. So
fair enough. That was my introduction. Right. So let's send it. What do we all think? We'll go with you first, Saffia, if you have to leave shortly. Your thoughts.
Okay. I'm sorry, I have to rush off because I have to set screens up for.
Right. Oh, you mean you've got to rush off right now?
I'm sorry about this. I have to rush off shortly. No, I can answer the question. Then I've got to go and set up screens for Black and Mirror.
Yeah, just what you think, Ebby. Things you'd like to see Ebby bring to the platform. Tips for the CEO.
Well, I'm hoping that what he'll represent is a safe pair of hands. He seems to have a very solid management background. He's done things like managing 800 engineers at Yahoo. And I think that's probably a good place for the CEO of the lab to be. I take a slightly odd position on this, perhaps. I've always felt that I don't really want the Lindens to be my friends. I just want them to run a nice grid for me and, you know, run it in that kind of way. I know a lot of people feel a much closer bond with the Lindens, and I'm a bit odd in that I don't. I like the Lindens that I know. They're nice people, but it's a relationship with them isn't really that important to me. However, having said that, communication is important, and I really do hope that the new CEO will be able to establish a professional and effective level of communication between the lab and the grid, the residents of the grid. I don't think it's just us who suffers from a lack of communication. There have been various news stories that have come out recently that I've read, and it said, and we asked Linden Lab for a comment, but they declined. And I thought, it's not that they're not talking to us. They're not talking to anyone, really. And what I would like to see come out is a better system of communication, which doesn't mean that I want them to be instantly on demand every time I have some question. And I don't want them to be instantly on demand for everyone across the grid who has a sort of media-related question. But I think we need a more efficient system than the one we have, where information either trickles out or doesn't come out at all and comes out with rumour and really freaks people. I mean, the terms of service, classic example of that.
Oh God, yeah, that's faded for the moment, but it is just going to be an ongoing sod.
It's still rubbing raw for a lot of people. And, you know, I think if it had been properly explained, if it had been properly set up, then it would have worked. And, you know, in some ways what they wanted to do was help people sell in a wider market. But there were other things. And I think if the communication had been better and earlier, things would have been a lot less painful for a lot more people. And every time one of these things happens, it just knocks back trust.
Yeah. Yeah, I know people can call on Lindens if they got, I don't know, it's subscription accounts or estate managers, whatever, and they have these back channels to get things sorted. But I agree with you. I mean, you know, it's, you know, I think everybody works for Linden, so some might like it. But, you know, there's this groupie thing of you want to have a Linden on your friends list or something. And there's all, you know, I mean, I think they probably are worried of that, you know, but it's like, you know, because you're a citizen of a country, you can't you can't make friends with the prime minister if you want to, of course, and you know, but there has to be channels, you know, a pyramid structure or something else by which you can communicate up, you know, whether, you know, you go, you know, a citizen can go to a local MP or something and elevate their concerns. And I think some system needs to be in a living world, which this is, to facilitate that. But, you know, not something that is just casually abused and everybody has to, you know, can demand this and that willy-nilly. There's too many people and too few staff. But certainly, you know, instituting some kind of customer service policy that is, you know, grid-wide and, you know, accessible, albeit maybe through a few hoops to the average resident, I think would be a good thing. How about you, Victor? You got any thoughts on what our new CEO should be, directions he should take or might take?
Well, I've got a rather unique perspective in all this. Back in the late 90s, I used to work for a company called Interplay. And back then, Interplay, this was before the merger of Activision and Blizzard. Back then, Interplay was one of the biggest gaming companies, pure games. I've noticed a pattern, and I noticed it when M. Linden came in. So let's look at all the CEOs we've had. We've had Philip Rosedale, the founder. He was the man with the vision. He was the man that was there when Second Life exploded in 2006 and 2007. right? Second Life grew. Linden Lab as a company also grew exponentially. So guess what? Here comes M. Linden.
Hang on a sec. I will just interrupt and say goodbye to Saffia. She's doing the vanishing act.
Okay, sorry.
She
have to go and set things up.
She has to go and set up screens for the Black and Maroon world. So we wish you luck with that, and we look forward to seeing it in not so long time now. So I hope to have you back on the show soon, and thanks for being here.
Hopefully you will. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye for now.
See you soon, Saffia.
Okay, sorry, Victor. I intervened there because I could see she was desperate to get off into that chat. So yes, you were coming to you were moving into M Linden, weren't you?
Yeah. M Linden came in and sorted the company out. 30% of the Linden Lab staff went. The structure of Linden Lab became a lot more corporate, and a lot of people didn't like that. I view M. Linden as the man that came in to sort the company out and get out quick, because if you look at Linden's CEO-ship, he wasn't there for all that long. He went in, 30% of the staff was gone, he tightened up the company and then left, and that's when Rod came in. Rod Humble was he was sort of my associate. He was over in EA when I was leaving Interplay. Rod Humble is a bit like Philip Rosedale. He's a man with a vision. I think what stumbled Rod was all the other little projects that Linden Lab came out with, like Creatorverse and Patterns. What Rod tried to do was expand Linden Lab's basically money intake. The way that Rod left, I was surprised at. I was very surprised at that. He left quietly. There was no announcement by anyone. The only reason people found out is because Joe Yardley found out because Rod told Joe on Facebook, and that's how it spread. As for the new CEO, Ebbe Altberg, I have got, and it's a gut feeling as someone who's been working in the game. I don't work in the gaming industry now because of health reasons. I left a long time ago, but I have got a gut feeling that he is the man who is going to be a mix of M. Linden, level-headed business corporation type, but he's also got a little bit of the Philip Rosedale and Rod Humble in him. I think Ebbe Altberg is the man who will look at Linden Lab, look at what's making Linden Lab money, look at what's not making Linden Lab money, and cut out the dead weight. And when I'm talking dead weight, I am talking about the stuff, not all of it, half the stuff that Rod Humble brought in. Patterns, Creatorverse, and all those small games. Some of it was popular. A lot of it is just dead weight for Linden Lab now. Ebbe Altberg will probably be in the CEO-ship for a good 3 or 4 years, and I think because he's Swedish, and all the Swedish people I know, they get things done. They just get things done. Head down, get to work. As for any tips and hints I've got for Mr. Altberg, and I said this a couple of times in some other podcasts, if you are going to talk to the community, and I hope you do. You don't have to do it all the time. Maybe a little blog post now and again, a little bit of a Twitter, but if you're going to interact with the community to the level that Philip Rosedale did, please don't surround yourself with the quote SL elite unquote. Yes. Second Life is a community. You have got to talk to a wide range of everyone in the community and not just the SL elite. You've got to take the advice, or not even advice, just general feelings of everyone, from the 0-day noob landing in Help Island to people like me and you, Mal, who've been round the block a few times.
That's a expression. You're welcome to it. Yeah, it's funny, you know. I don't, you know. I actually suspect that I'm fascinated by that quiet departure business. I mean, maybe it was a slip up, you know, because the new CEO came in so quick. Maybe it was always intended to be announce a switchover, because for Rod Humble, it was the end of what might have been a natural 3-year contract, more or less to the day.
Yeah.
So but, he may have just decided he didn't want to renew, or maybe the lab decided they didn't want to renew. We don't know. But it doesn't. In some ways, it doesn't really matter. As I mentioned at the top of the show, though, one of the actual surprises for me was the fact that this new movie, the Return to Oz or whatever it's called, is actually striking up a virtual marketing deal with Bloxworld. Which would imply that Bloxworld has been handling for Linden Labs behind the scenes, even if Patterns and Dio and all the other stuff. There's another clanky thing where you put things together on the iPad. I forget what it's called already, but maybe some of the other things haven't worked, but it does actually seem like Bloxworld's getting traction. Maybe it's the Minecraft effect or something, but that seemed to me very significant news when it came out. Sort of when I saw the article, I just thought, this movie has tied up a deal with some virtual something here. And I said, hang on, Bloxworld. Hey, that's a Linden Lab job, isn't it?
Yeah,
it made me do a double turn because I thought, well, that would imply that there's something successful or worthy about Bloxworld that is making a movie company want to collaborate.
Another thing, just one more thing that worries me as well, and it's got a lot to do with Linden Lab itself. Everyone is talking about the Oculus Rift.
Oh.
Virtual worlds are in. It's the in thing for all the hip cool kids out there, even though Second Life was a virtual world and it's been around for more than a decade.
Yeah.
What Mr. Altberg has to do, and he's got to do it the minute he steps into the Linden Lab office, is actually get Linden Lab to really market itself. A real marketing division. I look at all these blog posts and I look at all these tech that's the ones you've got to look out for, the tech blog posts.
Yeah.
And they're saying Linden Labs got a new CEO. Here's Mr. Ebbe Altberg, and then they show a picture of Linden Lab as a world, and it's a picture they took in 2007 and it looks awful.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. That they've got to get good marketing in. Linden Lab has got to get marketing in.
I think so. I mean, you just look at the way things like IMVU, on the web at least, they get marketing in everywhere, and some games companies getting on TV. They, it's almost worth saving up to really, take a shot across the bows in the media. One big publicity drive rather than lots of incremental stuff, which seems to me it's a bit of a waste of time. I mean, interesting you mentioned Oculus Rift, because we talked about this and Leap and other things here quite a bit on the show, and I think for most of us we just see these as some components and patterns and directions for future interfacing. You are very right. I mean, there is talk of Oculus Rift here, there, left, right, and everywhere on the web, not coming from the public who are saying, I can't wait for Oculus Rift to be in my local PC world. It's coming from the tech guys who are trying to say, this is going to be the next big thing and the cool big thing.
Well, and in fact, one of the item that I missed, that I knew I had one more thing, was in fact an item from games industry this week. An interview that was done, a DICE Summit presentation by Palmer Luckey, who's the founder of Oculus VR. Yeah. And Luckey is clearly been consuming his own Kool-Aid, and is indulging in the typical hype cycle run-up, kind of glowing. I had this vision of somebody who's just eyes wide and and doing this thing where he says VR is going to be one of the most important technologies in the history of mankind. Now that sounds like it's straight out of the lips of Philip London to me.
Yeah.
And I saw that and my eyes just kind of rolled. I was kind of like, oh, here we go again. It's to assume that a gadget by itself is going to capture the collective imagination sufficiently for people to put down their cell phones and park themselves in a chair to put on these goggles and immerse themselves. It's there's an awful lot of stretch involved in getting to that point.
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, I look at, I sort of agree with him. We all want to see virtual technologies, pick up more and, promote the small things like Second Life and, for big things on fine. Google things like space glasses and Google, Google Glass seem to be more on track because, these are just like spectacles you put on and may even be contact lenses at some point. But the point is, does it, as you say, Tara, does it capture the popular imagination? Now, I don't think that Oculus Rift, every gamer on the planet is going to probably want one. Fair enough. Because these are guys that sit in their chairs playing games all day long, but they're not going to want to play a game on their iPad with an Oculus Rift walking down the street. I can't even imagine watching it, let alone the number of accidents and stuff that would happen. It's all part of the course. Now, if I've got a nice chair and I've got a little slider thing on it where, if I want to use an Oculus Rift and it's cheap enough and I got one, I can just slide it over my head for a while, fine. But even I'm, into gadgets and stuff like that, most in the world are not into this at all until a lot of people I know will never pick up on anything, even when it's almost become ubiquitous. So these are just pathways to future interaction. It's good. The Oculus Rift is there. It's good. The Google Glass is there. The space glasses are there. It's good. The Sleep Motion is here. They all offer different opportunities. I know Second Life will have a version for Oculus Rift online shortly, and I'm hoping the mobile client that some friends of ours have been beta testing will be available on the iPad. Maybe something lightweight, I don't know, but all these things are good. As patterns of future direction, and the hypergrid and OpenSim, and even the way people like FastPath work. Even the whole landscape of virtuals is sort of up in the air. And I think the slowdown will come. That you can't. You can't do anything with mobile phones and iPads other than get short bites or read the news. They're consume rather than participate. Focused. You can create, you can participate, but it's early days. I mean, if you want to publicize something, I think you have to publicize it as a consumer platform, rather than, you can say how creative Second Life is, and you can come in, you can do this and do that and do it yourself and help build it. But that is not the message that will resonate with the majority of people. The majority of people will not want to know why they should download it and what they can come in and see and do. They'll discover the community and things like that when they get in there. But, you need to say, well, click here and visit this, and you want people to go on social networks saying, wow, I just clicked there and visited that and it was fantastic. You should click there and visit that too. They've got to hook into that messaging system, but also they've got, I think the progress of virtual worlds, and I've said it before, has been slowed down immeasurably by the advances in mobile technology, because the vision of something that would allow us to immerse ourselves and engage with other people virtually and be a cure for things like endless airplane travel and conferences and stuff like that has not happened yet. But there will have to be some solution in the future to all that, the environment depletion and everything else we're doing. So it will come eventually. But the reason I say mobile tech and wearable tech as hijackers is because this is all technology that's allowing people to go on the same old way and actually travel around with all this quick bites and communication. And it's actually, in many cases, I think it's distracting from people's functionality. They're not productive. They're too busy grabbing bites here, there, and everywhere, and thinking they're in tune with everything. Whereas in fact, they just get quick headlines or they get the bias because of the feed of their friends. They don't really have a grasp on slowing down. And I think what immersion and immersive spaces offer is the ability to slow down and engage more. And so maybe a CEO needs to not only tighten up communications Inworld, and maybe on a level that, connects to, like the VVOS thing I mentioned. But also, think carefully if there is going to be any major publicity sort of drive for Second Life. They need to. Second Life can be all things to all people, but they need to focus on a particular aspect that will engage with the public, the mass market mentality of consume. What can I just go in there and do? I don't want to go and build. I don't want to learn all that stuff. I don't want to wait 5 minutes to install the special viewer. But I wouldn't mind actually going and seeing this performer I'm seeing on the video now performing live. Somebody may be watching our live stream channel as this program's going out live and think, if there's a button there, they might think, I'll just press that button and go and sit in the audience live instead of watching it on things. So it's a halfway measure. They might have to log in as guest or something, and they might have a presence, but they wouldn't have an inventory or the ability to res anything or something. They just go in as a participant. So I think there's lots of avenues there that really have to be addressed. And Second Life is just one part of this greater metaverse. And I would actually like to see the new CEO. I would love it if somebody gives him a big crash course on the nature of the metaverse, not Second Life, but it brings him up to date on, the early interoperability projects and all the things that have happened in Second Life's past that maybe would be worth resurrecting. And, if they are good things to resurrect, of course.
Yeah, well, one would hope that that he will take it upon himself to get a Cliff Notes course on, it will give him some history on what he's missing as far as what he's missed on what's happened thus far. If I might interject a few thoughts here on the original question of we'd like to see Ebe focus on from reading the blog posts and the Twitter posts and the comments on kind of the major blog posts and some of the message board things that have hit. Aside from the fact that I think Ebe has probably been inundated, and I think that may have come as a bit of a surprise to him. The theme that comes up repeatedly is communication. And as far as I'm concerned, there's a couple things that I think are important. One, communication is a two-way street. If it isn't a two-way street, it's not communication.
Yep.
Somebody needs to be listening and somebody needs to be talking, and they need to be able to take turns. Now that doesn't mean, certainly as a corporation, I am fully in Saffia's camp as far as it doesn't mean, I don't think it ever means that a corporation has to, step and fetch it every time anybody says jump. And I certainly don't see that being the CEO's role to do that. But Linden Lab has clearly fallen down badly as far as communicating with its users, and its users' community is much, much too strong to ignore. And there have been so many occasions of bad handling of the community that there is some serious corrective work that needs to be done to come back up to a point where Linden Lab is clearly having some communication with its users in a form it can deal with. Mm-hmm. When it's thinking about or needs to make significant changes, such as terms of service, such as the business with terms of service, which is not resolved yet at all. So, the communication focus, I think, is really significant. One of the things that I'm taking some optimism from is that Ebe's background includes some of the stuff that's related to communication. In other words, things like marketing. And marketing to me is not how you promote something, but marketing is the piece of listening to your customers, identifying who your customer is and what they need. It's not the how do you push something to the customer. Marketing comes before promotion. Marketing is saying, who's our customer? Who are we trying to serve? And one of the things I think is pretty significant is, as we all know, Second Life's kind of, focal point as far as its age demographic is not 16-year-olds. It's 30-somethings. It's 30 to 40, 30 to 50. I would bet Block's World has a user base that's largely teens and 20s. I don't know. I haven't checked it out or anything like that, but that's my bet. It's a much younger demographic. So it's like, as a company, well, if they focus their marketing on the kinds of issues and concerns of kind of those broad age demographics, that might take them quite a distance. I don't know. I toss that out there just as a kind of a stray thought, but I'm entertaining some cautious optimism that the kind of diverse background that he has, that I think he may be good at the big picture stuff, and I hope he hears us.
I think he will, Chris. I think he will.
I was impressed by the fact that he hasn't even taken the job till tomorrow. He has actually been active in Skype already, and I don't mean Rebby, I mean Ebby.
You mean Twitter?
There was sorry, in Twitter. Yeah, there was a bit of confusion at first because I think
until you figured out who Rebby was.
The first friend, I think the first request I got was from Rebby, yes, and then I suddenly realised, hang on, I'm getting two of these, and there's an R there, and it suddenly clicked. But anyway, on the call now, and he's actually in the audience here, so I actually invited him to take a seat. Actually, is our good friend Joel Foner is in the audience here, and I believe you're on the call now, aren't you, Joel? Are you there?
I think so.
You are indeed. We're hearing you loud and clear. So
unbelievable.
You've taken a seat, so I think we'll all go.
Okay.
Join to the next to me. We'll allow you time to res. Oh well, there we go. Geo is coming around to welcome and
so there we go.
Good old Second Life.
I think I won't fish through all the sits right now, but I'm there.
Yeah, I think that's
so
fair
just
enough.
pretend you have a glass of your face.
Remarkably, you've rested on Geo Meek's camera nice and quick. You're fully with us today, and you're not a dragon to boot. That's even better. Welcome. It's been a while since. It's been a while.
That was an interesting side swipe. I should pull out the claws for you just for that.
Well, I still remember vividly the time you turned up as a dragon and you were bigger than our set. It was really a bit of an obstacle to overcome. That was. Whoever was doing it that day had great fun climbing up you. Yeah. But welcome back. It's been a while since we've seen you. Now, it's no secret that you're a former Linden, of course, way back when. But as you probably gathered, because I know you've been in the chat room, we are discussing, we've got a new CEO. We don't know much about him other than he's Swedish and he's serious. Well, you get the idea.
What else do you need to know?
I mean, Second Life. You're still involved here from time to time. You also got a background with the Lindens. I mean, without treading on any delicate territory, what do you think a new CEO at this stage should be endeavouring to do? Are there mistakes, sort of directions previous ones have taken that he should try and avoid? Other particular aspects of it, of what's going on that you should try and focus on, and as we've just been talking about, should he go for emphasized communications or big publicity swipe?
I mean, I think a couple of things. One is, we talk about communication, and by the way, I should reiterate for anybody who's listening now that I would have to go back and figure out how many years it's been since I worked at the lab.
Oh yeah.
So. Anything I know is probably 5 years out of date, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
In terms of actual real life being there. But yeah, I was there in the inside for long enough to have a sense of what goes on from both perspectives. So I guess a couple things. One is that I think Second Life, to go from where it is to something bigger, really has to get past the personality and identity crisis it's had for years. And what I mean by that is, what is the product? Is it a product for casual gamers and social use? Is it a product that's actually trying to be something that people would use through the totality of their life? Or is it a product for business, or all three? And I think the solutions are really different for those three profiles in terms of a product management perspective.
That's interesting. I said earlier, Second Life is like all things to all people, when that's part of its magic. But basically, from a promotional point of view, you would see the need for them to try and identify the prime market, presumably, and cash in on that.
And there are real questions about what features to build out in what ways based on those market sectors.
Exactly.
So, for instance, if you wanted Second Life to be viable for business use, there are architectural things you have to do to make it be able to play well behind a firewall, which it absolutely doesn't today.
Yes. big, huge.
I mean, about the
major.
only way you can get away. Right. I mean, about the only way you can get it to play ball in a company that has reasonably tight security is by having a personal VPN, which most companies would look at least a little bit askance at. But past that, things like, for better or worse, the business world runs on WebEx and Join Me and things like that, because people need to share their desktop in workable ways, because presentations haven't gone away. The 3D is an add-on and it's useful and you can convey things with it, and that's great. But I think one of the things that happened in the first go-round of going after business was this concept that somehow doing presentations would go away as soon as people realized how great 3D was. And there are definitely times where you just need to sit down and put some text in front of people. So.
I mentioned this last week, or fairly recently anyway. There's you may know it, Joel. There is a sort of, it's not really a virtual world, but it was sort of qualified as sort of metaverse related, called Sakoko.
Yeah, I've actually used it a bunch. Yep.
Yeah, I have it on my desktop and things, and you'll be familiar with the metaphor there, which is you have like a little Skype client, effectively, and you get an invite, and it launches the venue that you want to go to, and it's a 2D floor plan. You can walk around the floor plan, but you don't have the sense of a 3D environment. But what you can do is you can take a seat, and if you're allowed into a room, you can sit down and be part of a conference, and there'll be a board at the front of the room, and that may have a PowerPoint on it, and you click on that, and that zooms out and takes over your screen. So it facilitates. And you can talk in voice on it and things like that. So it does facilitate most of the communications we think of in somewhere like Second Life without the virtual environment. Yeah. And I would love it if a richer virtual environment, albeit a lightweight viewing system, could be launched in a similar way to the way Sakoko can launch things, like with the old Vivox talk client. And that was certainly, I think, that might address business use and all that. But I think, the question here really is if anybody knows the leading demographic of Second Life. Tara mentioned that the user base, it's in that 30-40 range, and a lot of quite elderly people use it because it's empowering, when they reach certain physical limits. We all do. It's I suspect the business use for it is not a high demographic. Especially when you can employ firewalled instances of an open simulator, for example, and then strategically connect to the hypergrid your showroom, whilst keeping your back office off the hypergrid. So there's carry on.
Oh, and so I guess agreed, and so there are so if you say, if we get to the place to say, okay, that's not really the target anymore, and it really hasn't been for years. It seems I think somebody, maybe it was you, Mel, talked about getting people off of smartphones. I can't imagine that's a winning strategy.
Oh no,
You know.
no, I can't. But if you think of Sakoko, which of course I've got on the iPad, but I could have it on the iPhone too, or the old Vivox. I think you may well have been at the lab back when they had the little Vivox client that ran on the desktop, so you could talk to message people when you weren't in World. You know, I'm not totally against a smartphone because that aspect of it could be incorporated into a smartphone quite easily.
Sure.
That could, you know, you can use your smartphone to keep the communications channels open. What I think is more and more on the internet and on the smartphones everywhere we go, more and more big business and old-fashioned media is trying to portalize the web and the internet. They're trying to bring up menu systems, make contracts behind the scenes to give us menus to decide where they're, you know, it's like old-fashioned television. They want to tell you the choices and decide what you're going to watch. Whereas, you know, my attitude is, I'm going to go and find what I want to watch. I don't want your damn menu. Thank you. But, yeah, you know, so it's a whole different approach. But, you know, and arguably, you know, the second screens and smart TVs are just delaying the inevitable because it's becoming consumer stuff again rather than full engagement. But, you know, I think as time passes, that will change. The mobile phones are never going to go away. We can't pretend that. But there will come a point where, you know, how is society going to function if everybody, instead of being productive, is just reading bytes? Sound bites, video bites, IMs all the while, and it doesn't have time to engage with things. And I think the slowing down and the immersion brings the virtual worlds offer can actually bring engagement. Could bring, you know, a bit of a sense of engagement back. So everything isn't all rush and tumble. You may make the initial contacts on your iPhone or your whatever phone and keep in touch with your friends without using the virtual environment. But that would be your user base, your contact base, as it were. Right. But, you know, the opportunity to grab a load of your friends and say, let's go to this immersive space to watch a concert by this band together, you know, then that, you know, people still go to concerts. And if there's not a concert on in an evening, maybe they would choose to go into the immersive space to watch a concert. And, you know, I think things like that will feed into a system once the sort of structure is there.
Here's the thing.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
The demographic that Second Life has got, Tara's mentioned it, and so the demographic for Second Life, and I remember the last major demographic release that the lab put out said the average age, roughly the average age of people in Second Life who were regularly in World, like I think the lab said 1 hour a week or something like that, which is basically most people, was people in their mid-40s, right? The split between male and female was almost 50-50. Now, in the gaming world, the mainstream gaming world, that split is nowhere near 50-50. It's almost 90% men, 10% female. The thing about smartphones is, I mean, all the people I don't have a smartphone. I don't even have a mobile phone because they're too expensive here in the UK. Most of the people I know don't have smartphones. Most of the people I know have very old mobile phones. The smartphone demographic is people in their teens going into their 20s and hitting their early 30s. Everyone has said for as long as I can remember it, when I left Interplay, this was roughly 2001, ever since 2001, the desktop PC is dying. The desktop PC is dead. The days of the big tower desktop PCs are dead. They've been saying that for almost, 20 odd years now? The desktop PC is not going anywhere, and it never will die. Second Life is in a perfect opportunity. All Linden Lab would need to do is do one big marketing program saying, so, you think virtual worlds is recent? Wrong. We've been here for more than 10 years. Full stop.
So I agree with you. This is about Joel in a minute, but I don't use a smartphone either. I actually, these days, I have an iPod, but that's really music. It's got apps, but it's Wi-Fi, and I have my iPad, but to me that is more of a replacement of a laptop. The one thing I don't have is an iPhone, and I'm very unlikely to get one. I've got an old-fashioned mobile phone, which occasionally I remember to take out with me, but I never use it, and in fact I can't use it. It's too small and fiddly. I can press answer if somebody rings, and that's about it, and struggle with them. But there are a lot of us, I agree, that aren't obsessed by that, constantly on walking around the streets talking. It does tend to be a younger demographic. So yeah, I mean, do you have a smartphone, Joel, as opposed to a mobile?
Oh yeah, and I guess I'm at least agreed that personal computers aren't going away, but when I look at what people are spending their time on, at least in the circles, of people I know and kids and, stuff like that, that, they said TV was going to go away. TV clearly hasn't gone away. But if you look at what people are spending their time on, a lot of it is social networks and YouTube and things like that, which are sort of TV surrogates, if you will. And, most of the gaming systems, including the monsters like World of Warcraft and things like that, have seen their usership level off. However, if you look at the way people live their lives in terms of communications, and this is the part that I'm really digging into, is, the number of people who, at least in this part of the U.S., Northeast U.S., they're constantly on smartphones all the time. I mean, you get on the subway, you get on the train. That is the context of people's lives, for better or worse. And I guess the point I'm trying to make is that if the primary communications context of somebody's life is their phone, then the computer becomes an auxiliary device, and they're much less likely psychologically to think about it as the important center point of connecting with the rest of the world. And I think that's the reason that it would be really important to fully integrate this, that it needs to be an equal partner, equal screen, not necessarily equal features, but if the rest of the world outside of the personal computer is not part of the world, the virtual world, it creates this huge psychological disconnect with the reality that people experience all day long, which is that they never have to be disconnected from the rest of the world because they got it in their pocket.
Well, yeah, I agree, because I think those devices, they are control panels, they are communication devices, they are everything, and there's nothing actually inherently wrong with that. The thing probably wrong is that long term, people are being less productive because they are addicted to short bites. But I look at something like TV. TV, for example, is picking up to the idea of smart TVs, one, and the second screen, the idea that you can control and interact with a program via Twitter on the pad or something while you're watching. They're using every old-fashioned psychological technique they can dig up to try and bring television into the modern world that way, but they're not addressing things like, why do we have, it's almost like Windows 8 decided to copy smart TVs with these tiles all over the place that you got to scroll around. Microsoft have given up copying Apple; they're now copying Samsung.
Speaking of new CEOs,
who is going? What TV manufacturer is going to actually sort of wake up one day and say, "Well, hang on, if we really want to examine the future of television, why don't we make the interface when they switch it on? Take all those blooming tiles away and give them a 3D room that they can swipe around to get to the things they want." Suddenly, the metaphor of a virtual environment can become ubiquitous overnight. People say, "Oh God, I've got to have one of those TVs. Gone are those tiles." And
to that point, I think I heard that the latest generation of phone hardware is not only adding new cores, but that some of them are going to have built-in 3D accelerators.
Yeah,
which I think is an interesting enabler. Because I think you need the hardware enablers to be able to do that stuff without killing the phone.
Well, I know the
there's-
iPhone. The iPhone. I know, for example, I haven't got one, but I know that I can get these devices that sort of snap in on both sides, so that it becomes like a giant gamepad.
Mhm.
And they have they have additional memory in the external device, so you can charge them up to extend battery life, and you can actually hold those in your hands like a slightly bigger iPad and drive them around and move them around to get gestures out of them. So these are clearly targeted at gamers. So I mean,
Yeah.
it's not as though some of the the iPads and maybe even the iPhone can't use for that. But I have to wear glasses to read my iPad. Can you imagine the kind of glasses I'd have to get to play a game on the mobile phone?
Oh, that gets fixed as soon as you replace the hardware and it's all an implant. You
Yeah.
know.
But yeah,
But actually, can I go back a step though?
yeah, sure.
Because there's a kind of solution that we talked about Sakoko, and for those listening, watching here who haven't seen it, it takes this concept of an avatar all the way back down to just a colored dot, basically. Kind of like the old Pac-Man kind of look, which seems like it wouldn't have any effect at all. But if what you're after is talking to people in a space, and each of the offices have their own audio space, so they're isolated, and you could have multiple whiteboards that are basically screen shares, it actually is effective to a point. And I've thought for a long time that there are ways to pull the Second Life metaphor onto very lightweight devices if we let go of the concept that it has to be fully 3D immersive in order to play ball. In the sense that you could have, I don't know if you've seen EVE Online, that spaceship, deep space MMO.
I play it.
Yeah, yes. One of the things that got me about that is you spend all this time doing your 3D character at the start when you create a character, and the character becomes a headshot, a 2D picture.
Oh, that's well.
and then the only time you actually get to see this 3D thing you built is when you're like on the bridge of the ship once in a blue moon. But but it works. And I guess what I'm thinking is that if you took the concept of Second Life and said, it's important for phones and smartphones to be an equal participant in the communication, but maybe not so the whole experience, you could do something like have a render farm that does a really low frame rate render of the environment you're in, and maybe sends you a picture update once every few seconds. That doesn't take a lot of hardware, and it would sort of bridge the gap between a Skype-like experience that when somebody's talking you see their static picture, and something that's not really a movie or full frame rate, but gives you a sense of what's going on and can screenshot.
There is an app on iPad called Pocket Metaverse, which is a bit like Radagast on the desktop. It's Second Life. It loads your inventory, your friends, voice, everything else, but no in-world environment. But Radagast and Pocket Metaverse more recently, after they started, have actually introduced that system. There's like a picture channel where they refresh the in-world scene for you. Very primitive, but enough to show where you are, every few seconds or something. So it's like a constantly refreshing JPEG. It's very low res and doesn't really work, but that is there. But the thing I'm reminded of more is I can never remember the name now. It's so long ago, but Second Life did actually try a web client for a while, and of course it wasn't really a web client. In other words, it wasn't the world embedded. It was actually a stream of a location. You needed broadband.
Right.
You could stream the location. The difference between that and what we're doing now, for example, is you could log in to that streaming location and you could send signals up in world where you were logged in as a guest, and you could interact with regular avatars and other guests. And when I was testing it, it worked remarkably well, but it was a short trial period and then it went. But it seemed to me, I don't know, I'm just dying to get my hands. I haven't been given the beta of the iPad app at the moment, but Daniel Voyager's the only one I know who's got it and seemed to happy with it. But obviously it's under DNA, you can't talk that much. But
Sure.
to me, something like that, could be very workable, because so long as I've got something that is streaming or delivering to me enough graphic detail to make out what's going on, and in fact, that thing was as good as Second Life itself, to be honest, then I don't need to be able to build. I don't need to be able to even change costumes. I don't even need my inventory, although it would help if I had some clothes on. It's a whole load of things I don't need to just pop in.
And that's what I'm talking about. I think if my theory is that part of what has limited Second Life is that it's compartmentalized to desktop PCs, which by its very nature means you can only be involved when you're in front of your computer, and that's only a part of your day. Yeah. And that if we're away, and I think the text clients like Radagast, the original Radagast, they go too far the other end. As Geo mentioned, no voice, or at least not originally. If things were gatewayed and streamed so you don't have the firewall problems and you have some ability to be there, I think I guess this comes back to the product management question, right? Is if some research shows that that's important to further adoption, then I would focus a lot of resources on that, and it would not take nearly as much as building a whole new viewer. If the product design were done carefully and with an eye to being good for the person on the device, whether it be a phone or a browser or whatever, rather than attempting to try to replicate the Second Life experience in something that can't handle it. Yeah. So that's a really long answer to your question. I think that would be one of the first things I would do is look at, is there a way to rethink the off personal computer experience in a way that would dramatically expand the audience?
I couldn't agree more. I mean, you were talking about, modern lifestyles now, and, I now spend the vast majority of my time sitting horizontally with the iPad. I can send...
Sitting horizontally? I'm sorry, I have
to... I don't mean napping, fully lying down.
Don't let him kid you, fool you.
Legs up and taking it easy. But the thing is, I can fire a video up to the TV screen from that AirPlay or whatever. Right. And, a lot of what I need to do in terms of go through feeds, tag things and whatever, and, make up lists and stuff, I can do very happily like that. And, to me, I now come over at stations to follow up certain things I've tagged in Pocket or something on the iPad, or to download videos I've tagged on the iPad or whatever. I come here to do the important mechanics that I can only do on a workstation, a bit of video editing if I can ever find time, things like that, which I don't happily do on the iPad. But in fact, the convenience and the speed with which I can do, I can do a lot more just with shifting everything that can be done over there to doing it over there. I get so much done a whole lot faster. Since I've had that thing, I've saved so much time. I've just been able to do more. But, there is a conscious decision where you don't say, well, hang on, I want to build something, or I want to do a piece of art or something like that. You come over to the workstation to do it. That's, it's time I got up and moved to my proper seat and desk and started doing something, The two do go hand in hand. If I can log into, Pocket Metaverse and IM people and chat to them in Second Life without really being in Second Life, because I can't see the environment, that's a quick remedy. But I will probably use it a lot more if it did have a lightweight 3D environment. I don't need to build on the iPad,
Yeah, but now I guess the thing I would just toss in here, and then I'm curious what the other thing is Joel wants to talk about, is that how you are using your devices and your purposes are pretty idiosyncratic.
Yeah, I know.
And I for one, I'm very curious to see whenever the lab comes out with whatever it's developing for handheld devices, for mobile devices, because obviously they're on the verge of that, and it was mentioned late last year. So anyway, Joel, what was your item? And I know that we're getting to the point where we probably need to think about wrapping.
I'm just saying we're nearing the 2 hours, so yes.
So Joel.
So a couple of really quick things. And so one is, as much as I was talking about the off PC experience, one of the things we all know is that when Second Life is running, it will take almost any amount of PC resources it has available to it, it will clobber. You know, being able to have a little switch that says, hey, run in lightweight mode would be really cool. And I'm not talking about necessarily graphically, but just whatever it takes to drop the utilization on the machine down so it allows you to do other things at the same time. And a second one, and this is going to sound like a technical nit, but it has driven me crazy since before I worked for the lab. Have you noticed, I know you have, but it may not have been front of mind. You know when you're sitting in Skype or Hangouts or some other IM client, AIM, whatever, you type. You can type at normal computer typing speeds, and it keeps up with you without effort. The viewer has never had a fluid typing mode.
I'm
such a slow typist, unfortunately.
You're right. You're right. And I have to say that I don't notice that so much now, but I definitely noticed it when I first logged into Second Life because, you know, my online community background comes from IRC, and IRC is essentially instant.
It's like
so yeah.
That, and I guess that it's one of those. It's not an in-your-face problem, but I believe it psychologically contributes to the feeling that this thing is slow to do things in. That, you know, when you type, you don't get instant response in the way you do from a word processor or a chat client. And I don't mean how long the message takes to get to the other person. I'm just talking about the turnaround on screen. That, you know, in particular, if simulators are slow or whatever, you know, you type and doesn't feel fast in responding to you when you type, which is one of the primary communication modes. And I feel like if they did some work to re-architect that, it may not make a huge difference to audience, but I have a hunch, completely unfounded by data, that people would think it runs faster.
I think you're right, Joel. I think that would be particularly true for anyone who's a fairly fast typist.
Yeah. Well, I as I said, I'm not, but so I can't really gauge that. But I actually think it's that raises a really strong issue because I think Second Life's clunky. You know, apart from lag and everything else, and things not doing what they're meant to do, the speed it takes to open the pop-up window. That doesn't, you know, that's inexcusable. You hang around and 20 seconds later, the inventory window decides to open. You know, that's another example of how it just doesn't feel responsive.
Well, maybe I was making a more general point.
Yeah.
That was just because I know they have made the typing speed faster than it was. But yeah, it's the general, you know, feel of slow, feel of overpower, stuff like that. But in any case, I think I may be dragging us way too over the cliff on this one.
I would make one comment. You have reminded me that I think it was when Viewer 3, or whatever stage they called it, when they decided Viewer 2 had a bad name. When they first brought that out, there was actually a basic mode, which launched until you chose advanced mode, where you put, you know, you'd click on something and you walk to it. It did away with all the powerful tools and just gave you a very simple interface. And that seems to have vanished somewhere down the line. I don't know why they got rid of basic mode. But, okay, well, before we close, any more thoughts on this line from you, Victor? You've gone very quiet, rich Scottish voices, silence.
Joel basically covered all the ideas I've got milling around in my head. I think one of the problems with the lab at least over the past 3 years, that they've never been able to break into the whole smartphone thing, is I think the lab were spread too thinly, going in too many directions at the same time. Hopefully Mr. Altberg will get things sorted out, because Joe's right. for Second Life to become even more popular than it is today, they have got to find some way, at least some small way, of getting onto the smartphone. Us people on the PCs can build stuff, and the people on the smartphone can meet in clubs and stream the music and talk to each other, and everyone would be happy. And hopefully Linden Labs steers in a direction that generally takes them to that general direction without crashing into an iceberg.
Well said. I think that sums it all up. So, okay, I think we're about ready to wrap. Is there anything else unmentioned, Tara, at your end?
Let's see. Well, the only thing I think of is that the Fantasy Gacha event is still going on, and you can actually get into the Sims now. It's Acerbus Silva, ACERBUS, second word SILVA is the Sim name. And I whizzed in there this morning because I thought, well, let's see if I can get into the Sim, because I tried earlier and couldn't. And I could get in, and I looked around just enough to realize that there are an incredibly large number of gachas to look at, to go through what all is there. So I said, I think I'm going to have to go back later. So put that on your list if you're a bit of a gacha fan or curious about them. Fantasy. It's a fantasy theme, so lots of fantasy kinds of items, and it's in an X-rated Sim, I believe. So keep that in mind, that you have to have yourself marked to visit adult Sims. That's it for me. It's going to be very interesting to see how Ebe's first week this coming week goes, once he's actually got his feet on the ground at the lab.
Yeah. Stepped in the middle. That is Linden Lab.
Yes. We've just. Yeah. Stay tuned. This will be an interesting ride for a while.
It will. Okay, I have one quickie thing I forgot to mention earlier in the destinations and stuff like that, courtesy of Questy, although from all over the place actually. The visitors. It actually opened on Friday. It's Lost Town La Cita Perduta. And it's an installation by a Chica Ghost called The Visitors. And yes, hang on a second. I think I can even... No, I can't give you the link offhand. It's got the name, but not the link. However, it's got these sort of... it's a mixture of a 3D environment with these sort of stick-like figures who are the visitors, and sounds very intriguing indeed. So that's just one more destination I had. So I think we can wrap up the show. Anything immediate coming up in the week, by the way, that you've got for us? Probably not Joel, but Victor, while we're on it. Any exciting events coming up during the week?
The only thing I'll be for the next 4 days I'll be doing is building the one. In fact, when this show finishes, I'll be heading straight to the 1 billion Rising Sim, starting work on that stage. That's all I'll be doing for 4 days.
Well, good luck. Joel has actually texted me and said, I have no exciting events. Thank you, Joel.
Well, not that would be relevant. Not that would be relevant to this show.
Exactly.
Oh, I do have one thing though, but it's not the Second Life Science Fiction Convention. If you're a sci-fi fan in Second Life, the SL Sci-Fi Convention is going ahead this year. It kicks off at the end of May and carries on into June. 6 Sims full of science fiction goodness. Yes.
Well, that's all the cue I need to make sure you come back. In a few weeks to let us know what's going to be happening there. That's fun. I'm a big science fiction fan, so that will certainly get me hooked for sure. Yeah, great. Okay, so we can look forward to that. Along with many events coming up in the year, it's hard to realise that we're already a month past the new year, and we're well into the new one now, so we can start sort of planning the agenda for the forthcoming year. Masses of things happening at the lab too, of course. So, just a quick word to Ebby. Forgive me for any mispronunciation of your name, but if you just happen to see this show, I'd just like you to welcome you to the grid, wish you the best of luck, and maybe even some of the thoughts we've had here today will inspire you. Or maybe you'll just ban us from your grid. I don't know. But welcome to the fold, so to speak. And that's about it for this week. We'll be back at the same time, play the same place next week. Follow me on twitter.com/Malburns for Metaverse feeds. And also, I'll tell you again, twitter.com/Malburns_writer for in-world type things, destinations, hunts, events, that sort of thing. So I'm going to call it the wrap. I'd like to thank all our guests. First of all, Saffia Widdershins, who has long since departed, but in her absence, thank you, Saffia, for everything earlier. And to Victor Mornington, thank you, Victor, for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This has been fun.
Yeah, well, I'm back. We're an open house whenever you feel like it. You just have to IM me and say, shall I be on the show today? And I'll say, yay! Save me looking. And thanks again to Joel Foner, who haven't we seen for a long while, but had some really interesting things to say at the end there on the conversation. So thank you, Joel.
Thanks, Mel. And once again, I keep saying I have nothing to talk about, and you keep saying, "Oh, come on, you'll have something to say." Okay, I give up.
And you do. That's the point.
Thanks for prodding me. Have a great week.
Okay, well, it's been a great show. And thanks as always to Tara. Thank you, Tara.
And also thank you, Geo Meek, for wonderful filming today.
Indeed. She beat me to it. Thank you, Geo. She's, I think, 4 weeks running now we've had him on camera. He's doing an absolutely wonderful job. So very special thanks for this sort of being able to step in here. It makes life easier. I don't have to go hunting for cameras as well as guests all at the last minute. And all to find them bedridden with flu. Never mind. Okay, we will see you again same time next week, and we're returning to our playlist now. And in about 20 minutes, you'll be getting to see back to back, as it were, the last 2 installments of The Black Mirror, and plenty of other goodies for you to watch as well. So with that, I will say good day for now, and we'll see you next week. Good day for now, and we'll see you next week.